Hey, Sean Devlin, the mortgage shoes man, 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 shoes man. Hey, Sean Devlin, the mortgage shoes man. Hey, Sean Devlin, the mortgage shoot man, coming at you with Happy Back to Work Tuesday. Two for Tuesday. Check it out. So, last week, we had the president, Mr. Trump, sign, the whole rollback of the Dodd rules and stuff. So I'm on the phone with a broker, and he's like, so that means I can charge 4 now, right? I know. So there's a lot of people out there that really don't know what the change, what's the rollback really mean. Okay, well, look, when QM ruled out the whole Dodd-Frank thing, it changed a couple of things, right? It changed how brokers get paid on the front or on the back, right? So essentially you can't do both. Does that change with the new rule? No, it doesn't. Okay, he didn't roll that back. Okay, so that's 100% clear. Second, QM and the whole 3% rule and all that, does that change what can actually be charged to the client? No. So, does it change any weight requirements as far as timing is concerned? No. It does in one small example, and I'll go over that for you. But the answer's no. And then finally, in the aspect of when this all rolled out, the last part of QM was for those funding loans, they had to keep a certain amount of assets in the bank, right? So they have to have skin in the game. If you're selling the mortgage-backed security, you have to have a certain, amount of that held in reserve. That's the big thing that changed. Okay? So, if you're a seller servicer, there's more impacted you. Versus, and what skin in the game you had to have. Especially if you're over 10 billion in assets. But it changes to certain requirements from 50 billion to 250 billion. So the real law, I'm going to break down a couple things. Let's go over it. All right. This amends the Truth in Lending Act. All right. The QM requirement of having skin in the game is maintained and, mentioned. It is exempt. You can have an exemption to this. If it's originated and retained by the institution, it complies with the QM points and fees and all that good stuff, and has no prepay and no negam or interest only. Pretty self-explanatory there. Appraisal services donated by a fee appraiser to a nonprofit is deemed usual and customary, or any agency that can take the tax deduction, right? So, I really don't know where people are going with that one, but we'll see some people trying to, do some sort of loophole on that in the future. All right. It amends the HMDAS, Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, for those that originate a smaller number of transactions. So it's like, under 2 or 3 or something like that. So you ain't a mortgage originator if you're doing 2 to 3 loans a whole year. So does it really affect the average mortgage guy? No. Amends the credit union rule. So members can get a business loan to 1 to 4 units now, and not have to have it be their primary residence. Okay? It's a business loan is what they call it. And their original rule right now is that they have to have it has to be their primary. If it's 1 to 4 units, it's odd. I don't know. I don't deal with credit union loans, so I just don't. So, okay. Transitional clause. So this will be a good one for those that realize they're at that bank and then they want to go to a non-depository institution and transfer their license. Now again, this is going to be clarified, but I believe there's 120 days that they have as a transition of the license from either state to state or from a depository institution to a non-depository institution. Whew. All right, so manufactured home companies are not considered loan originators. Okay. So, has assets of over 10 billion or less. Originator has fewer and meets all the requirements for capital and leverage. Okay. So, I'm reading my notes and I'm telling you all day long, if you have under 10 billion, there's no change to you. Okay. Disclosure. Let's talk about the disclosure period that did change. So, disclosure, the waiting period, the 3 days, is actually eliminated in respect to a second offer. So, if a creditor makes a second offer so they submit one way, it's suspended, they go back, they say, here's an offer that we will do. Here's to extend credit. Then it comes back, and a second time, they make a second offer. As long as the second offer has a lower APR, there's no waiting period. Kinda. If you make a big enough change of circumstance, you should want to redisclose to the client. It's going to be best practice anyways. So disclose to the client whether you have to wait 3 days or not. Cooling off period applies or not. It's more doing the right thing at that point. Because if they applied for a 15-year and then they were offered a 20 and then they submitted more income and now the third offer's a 30-year, well, the APR is lower. Assuming that's the case, you could do something like that where you don't have to wait 3 days anymore, it sounds like. But the average mortgage company, it's gonna do the right thing, I hope, and redisclose anyways, and whether you have to wait or not is regardless. If it's going to affect, the close of escrow in some shape or form, a sheriff sale, a short sale, approval, what have you, I can see a bank taking advantage of that, but they did a normal broker and wholesale and everything. You're waiting 3 days. Alright. I don't think really there's anything else to talk about on the bill other than that stuck out that really makes an impact to the change to the way that you do business. After rereading the summary about 5 times now, it's really geared, and it really seems like for those depository institutions that now are over 10 billion to 100 billion have a little area where they start to get scrutinized, stress tests and things like that. If you're over 50 billion up to 100 billion, you're definitely going to come across some things. But really the biggest rollback that he did, the Trump in this whole bill, was make it so those that instead of imposing all of the mandated requirements for reserves and everything per QM rules, was moved from an institution of 50 billion to 250 billion. So again, it really doesn't affect the average mortgage company or the average mortgage broker. It's important to know. No, you don't get to charge more money, etc. Business as usual, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, a little bit longer on this one, but share, interact, like, repeat, as always. So well.